Mary Breckenridge knew this truth, and proved it by helping thousands and thousands of individuals throughout her life. Mary Carson Breckinridge, the second of 4 children, was born on February 17, 1881, in Memphis, Tennessee. She was born into a wealthy political family and was well-traveled and well-educated. The Breckenridge dynasty began in Kentucky in 1793 with Mary's great-great-grandfather. Her grandfather was Vice President of the United States under President Buchanan, and her father was a congressman and a United States ambassador to Russia. At age 14, she witnessed the birth of her younger brother that was facilitated by a midwife. She said, "In looking back over the years of my childhood to find things that had a bearing on what came to be the frontier nursing service, there is one event that stands out in my memory above all others, and that is the birth of my younger brother in Russia in the early 90s. Mary had always had a heart to serve, but her family strongly discouraged any higher education. So in 1904, Mary and Henry Morrison were married. 2 years later, Morrison died unexpectedly after complications from appendicitis. Now as a widow at the age of 25, she took the initiative to further her education and decided to become a nurse. 4 years later, in 1910, she graduated from St. Luke's Hospital Training School in New York with honors. The following year, she married her second husband, Richard Ryan Thompson. In 1914, Mary and Richard had a son known fondly as Brecky. 2 years later, she gave birth to her premature daughter, Polly, who died after only 6 hours. Tragedy struck again with the death of her son in 1918. The death of her children profoundly impacted Mary Breckenridge. Soon after she divorced her husband, she set out to serve the needs of mothers and children in her home state. Mary said, "It grew upon me that nurse midwifery was the logical response to the needs of the young children in rural America. In America, much had been done for city children, whereas remotely rural children had been neglected. My work would be for them." That same year, she left to care for the victims of the 1918 influenza epidemic in Washington, D.C. In 1919, she joined the American Committee for Devastated France and organized a visiting nursing program. This program became the prerequisite to modern-day travel nursing. She continued the midwifery service in order to care for women and children in France for 2 years. Mary Breckenridge returned to the U.S. in 1921 to find that there were no midwifery schools, and she planned to start one. At the age of 40, she enrolled at Columbia University in New York and studied public health. Soon after, while traveling on horseback from family to family, she took a public health survey in the Appalachian Mountains of eastern Kentucky. She found that there were no physicians, and the women that were delivering babies were untrained and many times illiterate. Unhygienic folk health practices were implemented by these mountain women, and the area had the highest birth rate coupled with the highest infant mortality rate in the United States. After Columbia, she returned to Europe to formally study midwifery at the British Hospital for Mothers and Babies in London. She received her certificate and then went to Scotland for even further training. Mary returned to Kentucky in 1925 and established the Kentucky Committee for Mothers and Babies, which was later renamed the Frontier Nursing Service. Its headquarters were in Hyden, Kentucky, and it was originally funded by Mary herself. the Frontier Nursing Service is widely recognized as the first modern, comprehensive healthcare system in the United States. She hired 6 nurses who were also trained in England and Scotland, and since there were few reliable roads, these nurses used horses for transportation in order to serve even the most isolated Kentucky residents. They served approximately a 700 square mile area. In 1928, she built a small hospital and hired a medical director, and then established 6 outpost health centers. By the early 1930s, these nurses serviced over 1,000 rural families by providing general health care, prenatal and postnatal nursing care, and delivering babies. In 1937, they recorded their 3,000th maternity case, with only 2 mothers lost in the first 12 years, and over 90,000 vaccine doses given. Later in the 1940s, as technology advanced, nurses used jeeps to access remote areas. The program continued to serve and grow, and received numerous large donations. By the 1940s, it had become too expensive to send nurses to Europe to be trained, so Mary opened the Frontier School of Midwifery and Family Nursing, the first of its kind in the United States. At that time, the Frontier Nursing Service charged $2 for general care and $50 for births. Only occasionally were they paid in money, but more often in eggs, guns, vegetables, or whatever the family could provide. Regardless, no one was ever refused treatment. Nurses usually worked alone and had to carry a large variety of equipment in their saddlebags. The contents of these bags often held a pocket scale for weighing babies, medications such as castor oil, liquid ergot, mercurochrome, morphine, codeine, silver nitrite, as well as cloth diapers, scissors, gauze, a thermometer, a measuring tape, cord ties, shots, and many more items. Photos of newborns swaddled inside saddlebags were used to raise awareness for the good that the Frontier Nursing Service was doing. Instead of telling children that babies were delivered in the beaks of storks, they were told that they were delivered in saddlebags. The Frontier School of Midwifery and Family Nursing has been in continuous practice through today and is now known as the Frontier Nursing University in Versailles, Kentucky. It has educated nurses on comprehensive primary care for all family members and developed the first certificate program to prepare family nurse practitioners in the late 1960s. In 2022, the U.S. News and World Reports named Frontier Nursing University as one of the best nurse practitioner and graduate nursing programs in the country. During Mary Breckenridge's time with the Frontier Nursing Service, more than 50,000 people were treated, over 250,000 vaccines were given, and the rate of maternal and infant mortality dramatically decreased to below the U.S. average. She helped deliver 17,053 babies, with only 11 maternal deaths. Her work has served as a model for community health systems nationwide. Mary Breckenridge continued to lead the service well into her 80s until her death at 84 after battling leukemia and suffering a stroke. The Frontier Nursing Service is still in existence and works alongside 6 healthcare clinics, the Mary Breckenridge Hospital, and the Mary Breckenridge Home Health Agency. At Mary's death, Alan M. Trout wrote, "In her were combined the tender healing arts of a dedicated nurse, the hard-headed acumen of a practical businessman, and the rich charm of a wise and cultured personality."